Discover the amazing truth. My divorced father's $200 million hidden legacy changed everything. Sarah stared at the old, dusty recipe box perched on the edge of the table, its worn lid whispering secrets of the past. It was her father's, a man she hardly knew, who had abandoned her and her mother for the allure of the culinary world. Now, news of his passing had torn through the fabric of her comfortably numb existence in their small Midwestern town. The weight of expectations pressed down on Sarah like an anvil. Every hopeful dream of grandeur felt suffocated under the reality of her mediocre life. Working in the local diner, she made sandwiches and served cold coffee, while her heart yearned for Michelin stars and bustling kitchens that never seemed to be within her reach. Her stomach curled at the thought of reopening the restaurant that once bore his name, a place where her father had tried to carve out his own legacy. The prospect terrified her. What if she only inherited failure? An unclaimed fortune of $200 million loomed in her mind, but it felt shadowy and intangible, just like her father's reputation, which flickered between illusory greatness and devastating disappointment in the eyes of the townsfolk. Choosing to venture into an arena ripe with deep-seated biases and familial loyalty was a decision cloaked in fear. As she picked through ancient handwritten recipes, each stroke of her father's pen felt like a weighty reminder of missed opportunities, whispers of culinary brilliance untested. Could she really breathe life into his dreams, or was she only a naive girl clinging to fantasies like a lifeline? The idea seethed in her, a boiling pot of ambition intermingled with resentment and doubt. This journey was supposed to symbolize a revival, but every step felt like betrayal. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her pulse increased as she recalled her mother's warnings, steeped in concern and caution. Failure was not an option, especially not with Jack's name hanging in the air like a miasma of past mistakes. What if she stood at the precipice of disaster, weighed down by inherited shame? Her fingers traced the edge of a delicate parchment, its creases revealing clues to a recipe never served, intended to symbolize redemption. Could this find be her way of uniting their fractured family, or a foolhardy venture destined to collapse under scrutiny? Tonight, the whispers of the kitchen called her, laced with the aromatic promise of garlic and rosemary, inviting her deeper into the labyrinth of her ambition. Taking a breath, she felt determination ignite, but it was immediately swallowed by doubt, a painful back and forth that twisted her stomach tighter, an excruciating reminder that people would remember her father's expectations, not her own dreams. At the brink of reopening night, Sarah stood alone in the freshly painted restaurant, the walls stripped of memories yet infused with uncertainty. The door creaked open, revealing curious faces from the community, their expressions a mix of intrigue and skepticism. The flames of her inspiration flickered dangerously close to extinguishing under the weight of her father's choices. The future loomed over her like an unstable souffle, and she grasped the heavy handle of her emotions, teetering on the line between hope and despair. Would they embrace her vision, or cast her into the shadows once more? The first guests trickled in, their laughter hanging in the air. Sarah's heart raced as their conversations danced around her, a wild symphony of excitement mixed with whispers of doubt. Each glance felt like a spotlight. Her nerves tightened, and the weight of expectation threatened to crush her spirit before the night even truly began. She forced herself to breathe, her mind racing with doubts that spiraled into catastrophic scenarios. What if they were here merely to scrutinize? What if her food was a feeble attempt at rekindling her father's legacy, a last incompetent flicker in his long shadow? Clenching her fists, she took a deep breath, willing herself to believe that there was room for her light to shine. As the orders began to flow in, Sarah reluctantly embraced the challenge. She called upon her culinary knowledge, layering flavors with a determination she hadn't known she possessed. Each dish prepared became a personal statement, an assertion that she was not just a reflection of her father's mistakes, but a new voice in her own right. The rhythm of chopping, sizzling, and plating became a form of music that captivated her, drowning out the external noise of judgment. But as dinner service unfolded, her hidden insecurities bubbled to the surface. There it was, the unmistakable judgment in a patron's glance as they took their first bite. Instead of disappointment, however, she sensed a flicker of hesitation that sparked anger within her. She knew the pressure of living up to a legacy that felt like shackles, yet here she was, trying to break free. Would she allow a stray frown to define her progress? When one of the waitresses approached, her voice barely a whisper. "Table 2 wants to speak with you." Sarah's instinct screamed at her to flee, but deep down something stronger surged, curiosity paired with primal fear. What could they possibly say that would define her worth? With heavy footsteps she approached the table, a mix of resolve and dread coiling in her stomach. She faced a middle-aged couple, their expressions unreadable. It took all her effort to meet their gaze, the vulnerability of her situation laid bare. "How was your meal?" she ventured, trying to sound confident. The woman smiled, an unexpected warmth radiating from her. "You've brought back such wonderful memories. I used to come here with my father. Your father's recipes were the best." A thread of pride unfurled in Sarah's chest, coupled with an all-too-familiar knot of expectation. "Thank you," she replied, heart racing. "I'm trying to honor his legacy with my own twist." Their eyes narrowed slightly with intrigue. "You're doing more than that. You're making it your own." The word own echoed in Sarah's mind, reverberating through her realization that this journey was not just a reclamation of the past, but also an assertion of her future. For the first time that night, she felt the electric thrill of possibility course through her veins. As she returned to the kitchen, a message flickered through her thoughts like a beacon. She wasn't here solely to replicate, she was here to innovate. Driven by newfound energy, she decided to whip up a special for the night, utilizing ingredients fresh from the local farmer's market, something her father rarely focused on. A culinary risk, yes, but the risk was where progress lay. The tightness in Sarah's chest loosened, transformed by a bold realization. Maybe she carried more strength within her than she had given herself credit for. Just as she plated her new dish, the door swung open again, this time revealing an unexpected figure. It was Caroline, her old school friend and rival, whose family always overshadowed hers in the community. "Looks like you're trying to rebrand the family name, Sarah," Caroline called out, an edge of challenge in her tone. Facing her once again conjured a tempest of emotions, but Sarah was armed differently this time. Rather than retreat under the weight of anticipation, she stood ground. With shattered self-doubt and ignited ambition, she was ready to confront the ghosts of the past, and maybe, just maybe, reshape her future. "Have a taste before you judge," Sarah shot back, her voice steadier than she anticipated. The taste test of not just the dish, but her resolve was looming closer, and the stakes had never felt higher. How would she respond when faced with criticism not just from Caroline, but from herself? The juggernaut of change had begun, and she craved for it to rumble ahead. As the night unfolded, Sarah's mind raced beyond the clinking of silverware and the chatter of diners. She had issued a subtle challenge, one that demanded not just her culinary prowess, but the very essence of who she was. Caroline's presence felt like a specter looming over her, stirring a mixture of competitiveness and something deeper, fear. The kitchen buzzed with the frenetic energy of dinner service, but her focus remained locked on the plate before her. The vibrant colors of the dish she had created symbolized more than just a meal. It was a bold, unapologetic step towards crafting her identity, one revolutionized by fresh, local ingredients that also reflected her vision of sustainability. Caroline's voice echoed in her mind. She needed to confront the narrative that had long defined her, one of inadequacy compared to the legacy of others. Instead of succumbing to the weight of expectations, Sarah felt a flicker of rebellion burn within. This was about claiming her space, her artistry. As the plates were sent out to the floor, she felt the pang of anxiety gnaw, yet it was coupled with an exhilarating rush. With each passing minute, customers commented on the remarkable flavors. Conversations shifted from hushed whispers about her father's dishes to excited praises about her creation. Every compliment was a validation, but also a challenge to push the envelope further, to delve deeper into her creativity. The more she received, the further her confidence grew, and soon she relished the heat of the culinary battlefield. Yet, between the highs, doubts persevered. Tendrils of fear whispered insidiously. Could she sustain this beyond tonight? What if tonight was a fluke, her success tinged with the romanticism of nostalgia rather than merit? Despite the validation from patrons, she craved affirmation from the most crucial critic, herself. With the final orders slipping through the pass, Sarah caught a glimpse of Caroline standing at a table, her brow furrowed as she observed the reactions of her own guests. For a moment, they locked eyes, and Sarah felt a surge of empowerment replace the usual comparison. This confrontation was more than rivalry, it was a catalyst for growth. Instead of avoiding Caroline, she welcomed the challenge. "Have you tried the special?" Sarah asked, closing the distance. Caroline hesitated before nodding, her expression masking curiosity and defiance. "I'm not here to play nice, Sarah. Everyone in this community knows what I can do. That's great for you. But this isn't a competition. It's about evolution," Sarah replied, feeling the strength of her conviction rise. "I can only define my success on my terms, and tonight I've done just that." A challenge danced in Caroline's eyes, yet Sarah could see a flicker of respect lurking beneath the surface. Perhaps in competing against Caroline, she was really measuring herself against a past woven with fear, anticipating criticism when she could control her narrative instead. This revelation lifted her spirit. She had more control than she believed. As the night wound down, Sarah's heart swelled. She had not only survived but thrived in her chosen path. She was no longer a mere shadow. She was forging ahead, carving her identity in the culinary world, and she relished the newfound authenticity. But just as the last guests were departing, the doors swung open with a gust of wind. A tall figure stepped inside, someone she hadn't expected to see. It was her father's former business partner, a man cloaked in mystery and grace. His eyes scanned the bustling kitchen, landing on Sarah with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Sarah," he called out, his voice commanding yet soft. "We need to talk. There's more to your family's legacy than you realize." The words hung in the air, pregnant with implications. What could he reveal that would change everything she thought she understood? The prospect of hidden truths ignited both thrill and trepidation within her. The kitchen, only moments earlier filled with the harmonious sound of clinking dishes and excited chatter, transformed into a charged silence as Sarah faced the man who had once occupied a significant place in her father's business. He stood there, radiating an air of authority mixed with an undeniable connection to a past she desperately tried to redefine. "Why now?" she asked, crossing her arms defensively. Her heart raced not just from the unexpected confrontation, but from the looming promise of revelations that could shatter or bolster her newfound autonomy. "Your father and I," he began, his gaze unwavering, "we built more than just a restaurant. We crafted a legacy infused with dreams, ambition, and yes, some mistakes. You may think you know everything, but his vision extends beyond the menu you practice every day." As he spoke, Sarah wrestled with a whirlpool of emotions. Would this man's words dismantle the identity she was beginning to forge, or would they provide the final pieces to the puzzle her life had become? "What do you mean?" she pressed, her voice steady despite the uncertainty bubbling within her. His expression softened beneath the weight of nostalgia. "There are secrets about your father's ambitions, visionary plans he had before everything fell apart, plans that could still hold sway in the culinary world today. You have the talent, but there are layers you have yet to uncover." Secrets. The very word broke her carefully constructed facade. Her father had always been an elusive figure, a mixture of brilliance and tragedy. She felt as if he had projected his failures onto her, carving paths she couldn't hope to follow. Tension marred her thoughts, and suddenly, the savory enticement of her culinary creations felt lighter in significance compared to this new gravity of legacy. "Why are you telling me this now?" she questioned, framing the uncertainty as best she could. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand that you're more than a reflection of your father's success or failure. You have the ability to carve your own legacy. But you need to know the truth about what he envisioned. It's about recognizing what you could inherit. Not just the business, but the creative spark that could energize your journey ahead." His words ignited a conflagration of thoughts within her. She imagined the paths unexplored, the plates yet to be crafted. It was a breakthrough moment that blasted through the fog of doubt and fear. The comparison to Caroline, the insecurities gnawing at her aspirations, all seemed trivial against the backdrop of a hidden legacy. "Is there anything concrete? Anything I can work with?" Her voice now carried a note of urgency tempered by hope. He nodded. "Meet me tomorrow. I have documents, letters, sketches of recipes that were never realized. Your father had a vision for a series of events that could have changed everything." Sarah's heart raced with purpose, yet a flicker of doubt lingered. This could either fortify her resolve or veer her off course, into territories of ambition she had yet to navigate. "I'll think about it," she agreed, piecing together the gravity of what lay before her. As he turned to leave, Sarah noticed something in his eyes, a blend of admiration and concern. This wasn't a simple transaction. It was an invitation to redefine everything: her craft, her identity, her legacy. Standing in the aftermath of the evening's chaos, Sarah felt an intoxicating blend of fear and excitement. She could almost taste the future, ripe with possibilities. Tomorrow held the potential for discovery that transcended her father's shadows. This was her moment to forge an identity that, while tethered to her past, would not be defined by it. And as she flipped the sign to "Closed for the night," Sarah realized that with these new revelations, the challenge she faced was no longer just about culinary mastery. It was about embracing the very core of who she was meant to become. But just as she turned her back to the kitchen, her determination solidifying into a quiet resolve, a thought struck her. What if the truth about her father's legacy wasn't what she expected? What if it tested the values she had fought so hard to establish? With her heart in a tumult of anticipation and foreboding, Sarah's path grew clearer, yet darker fears whispered doubts of their own. How would she reconcile the truths that lay ahead? And in the morning, would she find the courage to seize her destiny? The morning light spilled through the kitchen window, illuminating the sprawling countertop where Sarah meticulously prepared her mise en place. The familiar rhythm offered fleeting comfort, a balm against the anxiety gnawing at her insides. Today was the day for revelations, but would they be the kind that fueled her ambition, or tethered her to a past she longed to escape? As she sliced through vegetables with precise, deliberate movements, her mind replayed the conversation from last night like a mantra. A legacy, an untold vision of her father. Each word resonated deep within her, stirring an intricate blend of fear and hope. What if uncovering his hidden plans brought to light skills she never knew she had, or perhaps feelings she wasn't ready to confront? Lost in thought, she nearly missed the small scrape of her knife against the cutting board, a reminder to remain focused. The tight grip she had on the handle was symptomatically reflective of her internal struggle. The kitchen was a realm of creativity and control, yet the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger than any simmering pot. Even as she worked, a part of her mind wandered toward the meeting ahead. What if these documents contained more than just sketches and letters? Could they include paradigms that shifted her perspective on culinary art, transforming her palate into something that transcended her father's original vision? "Sarah, focus," she muttered, shaking her head clear of distractions. At that moment, Caroline's voice interrupted her concentration. The sous chef approached, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Are you okay? You seem distant, lost in thought," Caroline inquired. "Just thinking about the future. The business," Sarah replied, cautiously guarding her emotions. "I have a meeting today that might change everything." "Exciting, right? You might finally find your footing among these old recipes that have haunted you." Sarah hesitated. "Maybe. But what if they challenge everything I've built so far? What if my father's dreams don't align with mine?" "You won't know unless you explore them. It could be the discovery you need to push forward." Caroline's optimistic tone struck a chord within her. Perhaps it was time to embrace risk instead of retreating to her safe corners. With newfound resolve, Sarah reminded herself that this was more than just an exploration of her father's legacy. It was an opportunity to pave her own way and define the parameters of her culinary identity. Would her inherent flair for innovation meld seamlessly with the footsteps of a father she hardly knew? The thought excited her even while it sent ripples of doubt coursing through her veins. As midday approached, Sarah felt an urgency that escalated with each tick of the clock. Reminding herself to stay grounded, she glanced at her reflection in the stainless steel fridge door. What if her father's dreams anchored her rather than bind her? What if revisiting his plans meant gaining access to her own untapped potential? When the time finally came, anticipation boiled within her. Standing in front of the restaurant's entrance, she inhaled sharply, steeling her resolve. As she entered the back office where the man awaited, she glanced at the stack of papers on the table, a bridge between what was and what could be. "Welcome, Sarah," he said, gesturing toward the documents. His voice dripped with condescension laced with enthusiasm, igniting a spark of rebellion within her. "Let's see if we can unlock some of those layers, shall we?" But as she took her seat, the looming question of authenticity slapped at her consciousness. Could she navigate the delicate balance between embracing her father's legacy while safeguarding her own essence? The weight of the moment felt suffocating as she opened the first document, a hand-drawn sketch of a dish. It seemed innocuous enough at first glance, yet the implications started translating into a profound digging into who she was ready to become. Each letter turned held the potential to either reinforce the shadow of her father or liberate her aspirations entirely. But as the man continued speaking, Sarah couldn't shake the thought. Was she truly ready to peel back the layers, or would she find herself ensnared in an inescapable truth that challenged her very foundation? This was more than a rediscovery of her father's spirit. It was about understanding her own. And with every paper she turned, Sarah felt both fear and exhilaration surge through her. Was her path to greatness hidden within these documents, or would they ultimately lead her down a road of self-doubt? The answers lay within reach, waiting to be unveiled, but only if she dared to confront the tenacity of her inherited legacy. And with the first page turned, she realized she had just crossed the threshold into a transformative journey that could either solidify her identity or force her to reckon with truths she had yet to confront. In that moment, she understood one irrevocable fact. The real test lay ahead, and it was time for Sarah to reclaim her culinary future, legacy intact, identity all her own. The air grew thick around Sarah as she continued to sift through the documents laid before her. Each one was more than just paper. They were fragmented whispers of a past she had barely begun to understand, calling out to her in a way that felt oddly personal. As she examined a recipe accompanied by scrawled comments in her father's distinct handwriting, its familiar yet foreign style evoked memories of dainty family dinners and the subtle ways her father imparted his culinary philosophy. This was more than just nostalgia. It was an invitation to dive deeper into her father's world, a world that seemed built on the very essence of flavor and art that she sought to transcend. Each flavor, each ingredient has a story, her father had once told her. The weight of that declaration suddenly bore down on her as she contemplated how her own narrative would intertwine with his. Do you understand now how they fit together? The man's eager question brought her back to the present. His eyes glimmered with expectation, but instead of answering, Sarah found herself measuring each thought against an internal scale of authenticity. Was she to accept this gift of legacy in its original form, or could she reshape it without losing what it meant? The man continued to talk, his words a series of calculated sales pitches masked as mentorship. Something about his demeanor irritated her, igniting a restlessness that strained against the chair's confines. She sensed his pressure to conform to expectations, his vision of what she ought to achieve through these new revelations. It wasn't just the documents that demanded her attention, it was the charge of re-establishing her purpose within the culinary landscape. Taking a breath, she decided it was time to address her apprehensions candidly. I appreciate the insights, but I need to forge my own path, she found herself saying, her voice steady, the rebellion within her manifesting confidently. I want to understand these recipes, yes, but I refuse to merely replicate a legacy I did not create. The man's smug smile faltered for just a moment, revealing a flash of surprise, but he regained his composure quickly, dismissing her words with an airy wave of his hand. Of course, but every artist requires a foundation. Your father knew culinary depth, and you have the opportunity to learn from that. Learning doesn't necessarily mean imitation, Sarah shot back, finding a fierceness she didn't know she possessed. The confrontation felt electric, fueling the narrative she began to script for herself. As the conversation shifted back to her father's sketches and writings, Sarah glimpsed something in the corner of her eye. A single piece of paper, slightly apart from the rest, drew her attention. It was a recipe for a dish her father had seldom made at home. The ingredients sang of richness and complexity, flavors that she had brushed past in her memory yet found captivating. Beneath it was a note. For the bold. Cook with heart. Love gives flavor. Those words pierced through her reluctance. What if love, in all its forms, reflected through cooking, family, aspirations, was the essence she had been missing? In the drive to honor her father's legacy, she felt the emergence of clarity. Perhaps the fusion of their dreams didn't have to be combative. Perhaps they could coexist. With that illumination came courage. Let's focus less on the past, and more on how to redefine this for the future, Sarah suggested, a newfound determination threading through her words. What if I reinterpret these recipes in ways that align with my vision? The man's brow furrowed slightly, unsure of how to respond, and Sarah felt a rush of exhilaration. This moment marked more than just a conversation. It was a declaration of independence. Her professional rebirth hinged on seizing her own narrative, reshaping it into something masterful. Yet as she left the office, each step felt heavier than the last. While she had begun to unearth the potential within herself, doubt lingered. Could she truly harmonize her father's legacy with her essence without losing her identity? As she closed the door behind her, Sarah caught a glimpse of her reflection in a nearby glass panel, a woman evolving into something fierce, yet uncertain. She was embarking on a journey that promised both discovery and confrontation. But as she strode through the kitchen once more, a lingering fear whispered, what if her pursuit of creativity led her to uncover secrets darker than her father's culinary techniques? The stakes were rising, and she had no choice but to push forward. The moment had come to truly face the shadows that danced within her father's legacy, and as she prepared to forge a path illuminated by her own dreams, she felt an undeniable surge of urgency. What revelations awaited, and could she withstand the truth? As Sarah navigated the bustling kitchen, the chatter of her colleagues filled the air, but it felt as though she was in a soundproof bubble. The feast of aromas swirled around her, yet they failed to ignite the passion they once did. Instead, a simmering anxiety bubbled beneath the surface, her threads of creativity jostling for space amid the overwhelming influence of her father's past. She made her way to the prep station, her mind racing through the implications of her recent revelations. The recipe she had uncovered, laden with layers of meaning from her father's own notes, became a focal point in her thoughts. For the bold, it read. The word seemed synonymous with her newfound commitment to reshape her narrative while honoring his legacy. As she chopped fresh herbs, Sarah's fingers moved with precision, but lacked the usual joy that filled her heart while cooking. The knife glided through the leaves, yet each slice felt mechanical. The weight of expectation pressed upon her. Was she bold enough to reinvent, or would her efforts crumble under the weight of tradition? Hey, Sarah, you good? Jenna, her colleague, leaned against the counter, her eyebrows arched in concern. Just thinking, Sarah replied, forcing a smile. About the competition coming up? Jenna asked, her tone light but eyes attentive. You've been quiet lately. You know we all think you're going to kill it. Sure, the competition. Sarah's mind flickered back to external validation, the very thing she sought to escape. This opportunity could be her stage to showcase an evolved culinary voice, yet the idea of stepping out of her father's shadow felt like a high-wire act without a safety net. Sarah inhaled deeply, the scent of citrus cutting through her fog of self-doubt. A strategy began to crystallize. She needed to take that recipe she had found and transform it, twist it, turn it, and breathe into it her own inspiration without burying the echoes of her father's culinary journey under the weight of yesterday. At lunch, she retreated to a quiet corner with her notes, scribbling ideas for reinterpretation. She would create a dish that was uniquely hers, but layered with nuances of her father's techniques. Each ingredient would narrate a part of their shared history, yet defy strict classification, like her own evolving identity. The notion sparked something within her. Suddenly, the competition didn't feel like a burden, but an opportunity, a canvas where she could paint with bold strokes. Each thought ignited conviction, and the determination unfurled swiftly within her chest. She would embrace the challenge, but doubt crept back, wrapping around her in a suffocating embrace. What if her interpretation was seen as disloyal? What if, despite her best efforts, she failed to honor the man whose mark was still imprinted on the very fabric of her existence? In that moment of introspection, Sarah felt the pang of her father's absence. She grabbed her phone, her fingers hovering above the keypad, as she contemplated sending a text to her mother. Would sharing her fears yield comfort, or simply conjure memories of the past? The silence before action loomed heavy. This was more than just a dish for a culinary competition. It was a defining moment in her life, a chance to embody the values her father had instilled, while also embedding her essence into the mosaic of their shared legacy. Just then, the piercing voice of their head chef summoned the team. All right, everyone, we're going to have a quick run-through of our competitors. The urgency pulled her back to the present. She glanced at her scribbled notes, now transformed into a battle plan. Sarah squared her shoulders, her heart racing with the welcome thrill of possibilities. As they gathered around for updates, she couldn't shake the feeling that stakes were higher than mere culinary accolades. This was about identity, influence, and her pursuit of a truth that shimmered just on the edge of discovery. But what awaited her beyond the competition? The tension between legacy and aspiration lingered in the air, forging a new battleground where risk and authenticity clashed. She was ready to confront that tension, but little did she know that a revelation about her father's past would soon shatter all preconceived notions, altering everything she believed about their culinary heritage. Would she be able to navigate that storm, or would it sweep her away entirely? The crowded kitchen pulsed with energy as the team prepared for the day's service. But Sarah's focus drifted inward. She inhaled the familiar mix of spices and sautéed vegetables, but the joy once evoked by these smells was muted by a wave of uncertainty. Today was not just any day. It marked the beginning of her transformation, a tackling of the legacy that felt both like a burden and a guidepost. During the service, she moved like an automaton, her actions precise but devoid of the fervor she yearned to rediscover. Each dish she plated bore the weight of her father's influence, yet she felt like a pale imitation of his genius. One dish, a classic risotto, became a poignant reminder of her struggle. It was rich and traditional, an echo of the meals they shared. As she stirred, she envisioned each grain of rice as a piece of her heart, desperately striving to integrate her own style without disturbing the delicate harmony that was his. "Sarah," called Jenna, pulling her from her reverie. "Are you in there?" "Yeah, just lost in thought," Sarah replied, forcing her mind back to the present. "Just wanted to make sure you're ready for the brainstorming session after our dinner rush. We all want to see what you come up with for the competition." Jenna's enthusiasm ignited a small flame in Sarah. The idea of sharing her vision, weaving her narrative into the culinary canvas, felt grander than the fleeting moments of doubt. As the evening continued, something inside her shifted slightly. She began to see her father's presence not as a shadow, but as a foundation upon which she could build. Once the kitchen was finally quiet, Sarah sat at the table scattered with half-scribbled notes and open cookbooks. This was her moment. She flipped through her father's old recipes, familiar yet foreign. They felt like guidelines rather than rules, an invitation to explore instead of replicate. With newfound resolve, she armed herself with a pen and started mapping out a dish that would reflect her journey. Her mind raced through flavor profiles, textures, and plating styles as she fleshed out her vision. This wasn't simply about cooking, it was about storytelling, and she was its author. The decision to add a twist to his classic flavors came to her like a surge of inspiration. A hint of citrus to brighten earthiness, perhaps? Each ingredient would symbolize a chapter of her life, something vibrant enough to entice the palate while anchoring her heart. As she wrote, Sarah felt an intoxicating mix of empowerment and anxiety flood her senses. What if this concoction, this blend of old and new, failed miserably? She couldn't help but confront the fear of stepping too far away from her father's legacy. Divulging her interpretation to the team might shatter their expectations of her. Would she be embraced for her divergence, or judged for her rebellion? The thought struck her again, the clashing ghosts of tradition and innovation battling for dominance. The memory of her father's guiding hands peeking in her mind against her own determination to emerge as an independent chef fueled her growing desire for authenticity. Just then, an unexpected message pinged on her phone. It was an article, "The Hidden Legacy of Culinary Giants," discussing uncharacteristic collaborations between influential chefs that had sparked renewed debate in the culinary world. Intrigued, she read on, her heart pounding as she considered the parallels to her life. The resonance of their stories echoed within her, the courage to redefine oneself against historical norms, the backdrop of culinary advancements lit by personal struggles. But then, she stumbled upon a passage that rattled her foundation, referencing a dish that her father had notably created. The word struck her hard. It suggested connections to another chef she found unsettling. How was it that a figure she thought she understood had possibly borrowed from rivals, distorting the narratives of originality? This revelation shook her further into uncertainty, while simultaneously igniting a fire of curiosity. Sarah realized she must confront the implications of this information, not merely for her sake, but for honoring the truth she felt she was fighting for. Her hands trembled as she drafted a plan. She would dissect her father's innovative techniques and explore their origins, bringing her own influences into the light. Determined, she cleared away the doubt cluttering her thoughts. The competition was no longer just a platform. It had morphed into a quest for authenticity amid a legacy painted with shadows. And as she peered into the depths of her culinary ancestry, Sarah knew that with every revelation, she was not only distilling her father's essence, but forging her path in the unforgiving world of gastronomy. Little did she know, the chaos of what she might uncover could very well change more than just her dish. It could alter the perception of her entire lineage. What awaited her on this turbulent journey of discovery was shrouded in mystery and danger. Would she be able to embrace this truth, or would it crumble the very foundation she'd fought so hard to build? With the weight of her father's shadow looming over her and the newly ignited curiosity propelling her forward, Sarah dove deep into her research. Days turned into late nights as she sifted through old cookbooks tucked away in dusty corners of the library, gathering not just recipes, but stories of the chefs who shaped culinary traditions. Each page revealed layers of history interwoven with inspiration, some born of honest innovation and others shrouded in controversy. Her kitchen transformed into both a sanctuary and a battleground. Every evening after service, she experimented with fusion elements, infusing traditional techniques with modern twists. Avocado puree laced with ginger, saffron-infused sauces, and unexpected herb combinations danced on her palate, each creation a tapestry of her evolving culinary voice. However, the success of these experiments was a double-edged sword. Triumph brought fleeting joy, while each failure rekindled her fears. Was she diverging too far from her father's legacy? Was she losing the essence that had once sparked her passion for cooking? Motivated by her discoveries, Sarah began to set up a meeting with her team to present her dish for the upcoming competition, a dish that would narrate her journey through flavors. But the specter of judgment hovered over her. Would her colleagues appreciate her evolution, or would they see her as an interloper within her family's storied kitchen? The night before the brainstorming session, doubts encroached upon her thoughts. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with self-critique. What if her dish lacked the sincerity her father's creations embodied? What if her passion was simply a rebellion against the very foundation she was trying to honor? She wrestled with the notion that perhaps, in her quest for authenticity, she might inadvertently tarnish the legacy she cherished. The morning dawned with an electric intensity. She readied herself, hands shaking as she tasted the final iteration of her dish. A vibrant, sumptuously layered risotto that melded her father's classic approach with her bold new vision. Citrus accents threaded through buttery richness. Fresh herbs sparked vibrancy amidst the comforting familiarity of the grains. It was an embodiment of her journey, transcending mere replication. As she entered the kitchen, adrenaline surged within her. The faces of her colleagues gathered around the table were familiar, yet unfamiliar. They were a canvas of expectation and skepticism. She cleared her throat, the weight of her father's legacy pressing upon her chest. "Hey everyone, I've been working on something for the competition," she began, her voice wavering but gradually finding steadiness. "It's a reinterpretation of my father's traditional risotto, infused with flavors that represent my journey and growth." A hush fell over the room, curiosity mingling with trepidation. She served her dish with careful presentation, as the alluring aroma wafted through the air. As they tasted, her heart pounded with every gaze directed at her. The silence that enveloped the room felt both suffocating and exhilarating. Their faces transformed slowly, from concentrated scrutiny to looks of contemplation, and then delight. Jenna, her closest ally, leaned forward, eyes wide with surprise. "This is incredible, Sarah. You've really made it your own." The wave of relief that washed over her felt liberating. She was not just sharing a dish, she was revealing her identity, her independence, a voice forged against the backdrop of tradition. Yet just as joy threatened to settle in, an uneasy thought flickered in her mind. What if the team rallied behind her new approach but questioned the integrity of her father's creations? Would they tear down the foundation she fought so hard to honor for the sake of her own evolution? With excitement still coursing through her veins, Sarah grappled with the knowledge that her path, while illuminated by hope, was fraught with risks and challenging questions. As she prepared to address their questions, she felt an awakening within, a seedling of resilience taking root. But even as she enjoyed the fleeting success of her presentation, a new message pinged on her phone, deeper shadows pulling her back to the unknown. The subject line read, "Analysis of legendary chefs' controversies." With bated breath, she opened the email, already sensing that the next chapter of her journey would delve into realms of skepticism and revelation, challenging everything she thought she knew about her legacy. Was she, too, treading dangerous waters, or was it time to embrace the truth that could come from such unsettling discoveries? The day of the competition had arrived, and Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through her as she made her way to the venue. This was the opportunity she had yearned for, a platform to reveal her culinary identity, shaped by both her father's legacy and her own innovative spirit. Yet beneath that excitement lay a gnawing uncertainty about how her dish would be received and whether she could truly honor her father without being consumed by the confines of his shadow. As the event progressed, with the buzz of anticipation humming through the air, Sarah took a moment to compose herself. Contestants bustled around, each focused on their unique creations, but her thoughts remained tethered to the essence of her dish. A vibrant risotto infused with citrus and fresh herbs. A reflection of not just her culinary prowess, but her personal journey of overcoming doubt and embracing her identity. Stepping onto the stage to present her dish, Sarah's palms felt clammy, but she drew a deep breath, grounding herself. This dish represents a fusion of my father's traditional recipes and my own vision. It's not just about the food, it's about reclaiming my family's culinary narrative and redefining it through my own lens. Her voice carried conviction. She felt every word resonate with her newfound confidence. As the judges tasted her risotto, whispers of admiration swept through the audience. Each forkful lifted the weight of expectation that had previously constricted her. They murmured about the boldness of flavors, the blend of tradition and innovation, and Sarah felt a swell of accomplishment. A panelist raised an eyebrow and posed the question lingering in Sarah's mind. Your approach is fresh, but how do you reconcile this with your father's legacy? How do you ensure you're honoring the past while forging your own path? For me, it's crucial to understand that legacy is not static. It's dynamic and meant to evolve, Sarah responded, her confidence surging. My father's legacy laid the foundation, but it's my responsibility to build on it and innovate. I can honor his memory while expressing my individuality, reflecting the cultural shifts in our culinary landscape. The judges exchanged knowing glances, and Sarah could read the intrigue in their eyes. She had proven her ability to articulate her vision, solidifying her voice in a domain where silence often drowned out authenticity. With that moment, she felt a powerful affirmation course through her. She had taken ownership of her narrative, and the resonance of her determination erupted within her. As the competition reached its climax, Sarah received feedback from respected culinary figures, who praised not only her dish, but her approach to honoring tradition while embracing modern tastes. It was validation she had desperately needed, the recognition of her growth, a nod toward her evolution from an uncertain young woman to a confident chef ready to stake her claim in the culinary world. Moments later, when they announced the winner, Sarah's heart raced. The room settled into anticipation as the judges revealed the results. When they called her name, time seemed to freeze. The applause thundered in her ears. Warmth blossomed in her chest, overriding her earlier doubts. She had not only won a competition, she had claimed her story. In the days that followed, the recognition catapulted her into the culinary spotlight. Sarah was invited to showcase her work through interviews, culinary workshops, and even feature her signature dish in a local restaurant. Her journey became a source of inspiration, resonating with those who sought to carve their path amidst familial legacies. Sarah stood before her restaurant, the name honoring her father, but now illuminated by her own vision. She gazed at the well-visited establishment, the blending of past and future symbolically represented in the dishes she served. What had once been a place filled with anxiety and fear had transformed into a culinary haven, thriving under her directorship. The final sense of satisfaction washed over Sarah as she surveyed the bustling kitchen, where camaraderie thrived among a team of passionate chefs, each expressing their creativity while embracing her guiding philosophy of innovation anchored in heritage. She had not only transformed her relationship with her father and his legacy, but also fostered an environment that encouraged others to find their voice and flourish. The unexpected email announcing her father's hidden legacy, replete with sketches and untold stories, lay tucked away, a promise for another chapter in her culinary journey. In that moment, Sarah realized her journey had merely begun. With her head held high, Sarah stepped into the kitchen, embodying resilience and confidence. She had not just reclaimed her father's legacy, she had transformed it into an evolving narrative that belonged to her. The essence of her triumph lay in the unwavering belief that true identity could rise like a soufflé, brilliantly venturing beyond the shadows of the past. And with her heart echoing the beating rhythm of electric possibilities, Sarah knew the world was ready to embrace the brilliance of her culinary identity, one born from the courage to tackle the truths that challenged her, revealing a legacy crafted in authenticity and sincerity. Now is the time to join the journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to show your support and feed the algorithm. Comment below what you think about Sarah's transformation and your own theories. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this inspiring story of personal overcoming and resilience.